Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got something very special for you because we have a special guest, and if you're following Mortal Kombat Mobile on Twitter, you already know him. It's Man with No Game 45, who recently also set up a little YouTube channel dedicated to one of our most favorite games in the world, Mortal Kombat Mobile. But for everyone who is not familiar with him, Man with No Game 45, how about you introduce yourself and tell people where they can find you on YouTube and on Twitter.
Thank you for that terrific introduction, MKKC, and for hosting me on your channel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a bit of a drifter, and I was a stranger in these parts when I first came into the Twitter world of Mortal Kombat Mobile in February of 2019. I've been a Mortal Kombat Mobile player for over 4 years now, and have recently earned some renown for beating match 194 of the Lin Kuei Tower with silver cards. You can find that video on my YouTube channel, Man with No Game 45 YT, and if you enjoy it, please like and subscribe, and of course, follow me on Twitter at Man with No Game 45.
Alright then, well, welcome to my channel, and as you guys already saw on our thumbnails, this podcast type of video will be us talking about the Lin Kuei Tower. Now that the Lin Kuei Tower event is over, we do a little recap and put our thoughts into what was going on in the game. And maybe we should let our guest start first. So Man with No Game 45, what are your overall thoughts about the Lin Kuei Tower? How did you enjoy this event?
KC, the Lin Kuei Tower event was precisely what Mortal Kombat Mobile needed at this time. Not only did we get a brutality for Diamond Sub-Zero, a whole lot of new equipment for Lin Kuei Tower specifically, but we also got the challenge that veteran players have been waiting years for. I absolutely loved this event because of the challenge. It made me rethink my entire strategy and approach to Mortal Kombat Mobile. I had to redesign my talent tree from the ground up, which is something I haven't done in years. I had to meticulously craft each of my teams, paying very special attention to each character that I was using, as well as the equipment loadouts. Overall, aside from the painfully low drop rates on the tower equipment, I thought this event was perfect. It's exactly the direction we want to see the game going in, and I hope that this trend continues with the next update.
That sounds surprisingly optimistic. I think I'm more on the critical side of things here. Because after all, the Lin Kuei Tower, just the same as the Tower of Horror before, is basically nothing else than just a reimagination of Shao Kahn's tower. The entire concept is exactly the same, just with the addition that they now added boss battles, which we kind of already are familiar with from challenge mode. However, I do appreciate the increased difficulty, especially when it comes to the last 50 battles of the tower. Big negative in my book is that we also have to refresh the fights for souls, which constantly drains our resources, which we already have to invest to unlock new characters. I'm thinking about Assassin Scarlet or Terminator, and so far I was not even able to unlock any of them yet, which kind of makes the drop rates even worse than the Lin Kuei Tower itself. And during the last few weeks, you and I have been in close contact, so you know exactly what I mean when I'm speaking of lousy drop rates.
Well, KC, this is the trouble with RNG. Everybody's going to have a different experience, and everybody's going to have luck that's either better or worse.
On the bright side, there is definitely no doubt that we have quite a few really good gear pieces in the Lin Kuei Tower. I think we will be using many of these gear pieces in faction wars and of course during challenges. And we will get to talk about the gear very soon. But before we get to that, you mentioned veteran players. And I myself already completed the first 1000 consecutive days login. Since I started playing this game, I haven't missed a single day. And for me it was before we went to 2.0. I have basically maxed out all the characters that I could The only one I wasn't able to complete was Ronin Takeda, but you remember, for example, the Netherrealm pack, which gave you Warlock Quan Chi, Revenant Sub-Zero, and Revenant Jax bricks in just one pack for, what was that, around 900 souls or something? So my Revenant Sub-Zero, or now Circle of Shadow Sub-Zero, as well as my Cold War Sub-Zero was already maxed out from challenges and challenge packs, leaving only MK11 Sub-Zero in the race for a fusion. Long story short, in the end, after completing the tower 7.5 times, I was just able to gain one fusion for MK11 Sub-Zero, the rest were completely sellbacks, making a fight all the way up to 200 fights to complete the tower. Kind of a pain, and all in all barely worth it given all the souls invested prior to get to that point.
Your complaints about the tower are valid, of course, but by the same token, they could have just carried on doing exactly what they'd done in the past, which was giving us new characters that we could hardly unlock, and giving us towers, even like Tower of Horror, that really weren't much of a challenge for most of us. Of course, though, I see things differently, because I was able to get 2 MK11 Sub-Zeros and fuse my MK11 Sub-Zero up to 10. I would venture to say that you might have a different perspective if you'd had a better experience with the drop rates and therefore the RNG on the tower.
Man with no game 45, you're absolutely right on that. It all comes down to the personal experience, and absolutely, if I would have had better drop rates, I would have enjoyed this event way more. For example, I enjoyed the Tower of Horror slightly better because we had Black Dragon Cabal at the end as a reward, and since nobody had him yet, we all were able to get a fusion for each time we completed that tower. That definitely guaranteed fusion of Black Dragon Cabal at the end was always kind of worth it to complete the 200 matches, and I always looked forward to the next run.
The Lin Kuei Tower also had much better equipment than Tower of Horror. Even though the drop rate was lower, the uncommons in the Lin Kuei Tower were as good or better than the rares that dropped in Tower of Horror. You couldn't even use the uncommon cards in Tower of Horror. They're basically worthless. Also, Lin Kuei Tower, in giving out a gold card or a gold challenge card for beating a boss, basically paid for itself. Because with the other drops between matches, you'd often get 17, 47 souls, whatever it might be. And I found there were a number of times that playing the tower just actually paid for itself. I didn't even end up spending any souls. I came out ahead.
You got a very good point there, because I agree that these boss battles were the right direction they took the game in. And it was something we totally missed out on in the Tower of Horror. And since all challenge cards and normal cards were already maxed out for me, at least every boss battle guaranteed me free souls. Well, not really free souls, but at least they gave me some souls back. And I really appreciated especially the higher level fights against the bosses, let's say from fight number 150 upwards.
The epic challenge that was offered, though, was certainly the best part. 180, 190, 194, 200. Those matches all pushed us to the limit of our abilities, the limit of the cards that we had in our collection. Also, there was a huge reward if you could figure out a faster way to beat those matches. You would be able to complete the tower more often, and therefore be able to fuse more cards, get more fusions on your scepter. So at the end of the day, I really appreciated that element of the tower, and I hope that in the update to come, it will be similar.
The scepter was without a doubt one of the really good new additions, especially when you combined them with the bracers. But how about we just jump directly into the gear talk, because that's the main thing most people played the tower for in the first place. Gaining new equipment, and as you already mentioned, the equipment in the Lin Kuei Tower was way better than in the Tower of Horror. Because when I look now at Faction Wars and which cards I am still using from the Tower of Horror, it's basically only the Living Dead armor. Everything else is kind of useless to me. But compared to the Lin Kuei Tower equipment, there is so much more that I am using even right now. My favorite gear pieces, I would say, are the bracers, not even just the scepter, the bracers alone, because you can use them on every character you want to. And they have this kind of function as you would have with Classic Kano, who stuns the opponent when the opponent blocks. In this case, they will just freeze the opponent, thereby also breaking up the block and giving you the chance to hit back properly. Then of course we have the Ice Bomb, which is the perfect gear piece to finally counter Circle of Shadow Liu Kang's passive. Circle of Shadow Liu Kang annoyed the hell out of most of us for so long, and finally we have something to hold against him. Before, the best chance to counter Circle of Shadow Liu Kang was always using the 20% resistance to all debuffs from the talent tree, and then adding Tremor's Earth Elemental Face Mask, which gave you another 30% resistance to all debuffs. So even if you just played a gold card, you at least had a 50% chance. And of course, if you played a diamond card, you always could use Sinda's Signet Ring on top, which added another 50%, guaranteeing a 100% chance that Liu Kang will not stun you at the beginning of the match. And even as a newer player, you were able to reach that goal if you just used the Elemental Stones, which also added 50% extra on top. But now with the Ice Bomb, we don't even have to worry about that anymore. We can turn around this passive completely, because even if we are stunned by Liu Kang, the freeze effect from the Ice Bomb when maxed out will be slightly longer than the stun by Liu Kang, which means that we still have the chance to tag out to another card who already has a special attack ready, or we get the first hit in, mostly leading to a combo, and the advantage is on our side. But I think that one of the best cards we were not even dreaming of is the Frost Orb, which not only revives you after the player's death, basically like the Living Dead armor, but also when maxed out we would have that immunity to Frostbite and Stun, which also would negate the stun, for example by Circle of Shadow Liu Kang. The Frozen Mummy is without a doubt a very good card with 100% immunity to Frostbite, but a maxed out Frost Orb with the Resurrection chance on top beats that by a long stretch. So those are the cards I will keep using in Faction Wars even now with the Lin Kuei Tower event long gone, and hopefully it will return at some point. But how about you? What are your favorite gear pieces? What will you keep using in Faction Wars? Aside from the Scepter and the Bracers to, of course, perform this glorious brutality we have now for Diamond Sub-Zero cards. By the way, something that also kind of bugged me is that we only have that for the diamond cards and not for the gold cards at all. Because when you just think about it this way, we could use the Scepter for the weapon slot and the Bracers for the accessory slot, which makes it kind of logical that even gold cards should be able to perform that brutality. But that's just on a side note, so how about you?
Well, KC, let me say first that I did find Bloodsucker, Witch's Ward, meets Cleaver, Hellfire Blade from Tower of Horror to still be useful equipment. So there were a few more pieces besides just the Living Dead that were good that came out of Tower of Horror. As far as useful equipment that came from the Lin Kuei Tower, I think a couple that you missed were actually the Ice Gloves. I think the Ice Gloves specifically when paired with the Scepter and Bracers really add a whole lot more power because you're hitting that strength bump all the time, especially when equipped on a Diamond Sub-Zero who's throwing ice balls. So specifically we're talking Cold War Sub-Zero or Circle of Shadow Sub-Zero. That is an especially useful piece of equipment. My other favorite, which I'll add on to that Sub-Zero along with the Scepter, the Bracers, and the Frost Gloves, would have to be the Quarry Blade, because then each time I'm taking out an opponent, I'm getting an ice shield, and beyond that, it has an attack multiplier on it, like the Wrath Hammer. An attack multiplier, that adds the most damage of any buff on an equipment in the game. So Quarry Blade is just a terrific epic weapon. I'm so pleased that I've got mine at a Fusion 3. I'm really grateful for that. And I know a lot of folks had a hard time even getting that equipment, and therefore I think there's one other one that I wasn't lucky enough to collect. That would be the Frost Mask. I believe that with the health bonuses there, that's probably something that could be useful as an armor in the game in Faction Wars. I just never got enough drops on it myself to be able to see how it functioned and if it was worth using up an armor slot for that equipment.
The Quarry Blade seems mostly valuable once it is maxed out. Adding the function to steal power from your opponents sounds pretty awesome. Unfortunately, the Quarry Blade was the only gear piece I wasn't able to unlock at all. In Tower of Horror I already had this with the Wailing Spirits armor, not dropping for me at all. Here in the Lin Kuei Tower it was the Quarry Blade. Anyway, the Lin Kuei Tower was a fun event, even if I had some issues with it, and some of the gear pieces are a more than welcome addition to my collection. And as you said, it's good that the MK Mobile team came up with something different instead of going the same old rinse-repeat route. We absolutely have to give them credit for that. For the future, I really hope that we'll see many towers in that spirit. First and foremost, a tower dedicated to the Shirai Ryu, and hopefully a Brutality for Diamond Scorpion characters next. And coming along with it, many more creative gear choices, because that is really something that changes the face of Faction Wars. For example, I can imagine that we might not see Circle of Shadow Liu Kang that often anymore, since the Frost Orb makes his passive useless. When playing maxed out cards, we often get to see the same characters over and over. Circle of Shadow Liu Kang, Assassin Jade, Nightmare Jason Voorhees, etc. Now we can force players who prefer to take the easy way out to adapt and become creative again. In the long run, this will make the battles in Faction Wars much more interesting and fun to play. I feel the next update is just around the corner, and the MK Mobile community is most certainly hungry for the next step in the evolution of MK Mobile. Man with No Game 45, it was an honor to have you as a guest of the very first Kombat Talks episode, and now you have once more the opportunity to tell people where they can find you and add some final words. Again, thanks a lot for stopping by. I had a lot of fun doing this collaboration with you, and now the stage is yours. Shoot from the hip, gunslinger.
KC, it's been my sincere pleasure to visit your channel. Thank you for hosting me here. Folks, if you've enjoyed the content MKKC and I had to share with you today, please like and subscribe to his channel. And also please visit my channel, Man with No Game 45 space YT, and like and subscribe there as well. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Man with No Game 45. Also, be on the lookout for my YouTube video, Classic Reptile on a Budget. That should help you with the upcoming event and hopefully save you hundreds, if not thousands of souls.
Well, that definitely sounds promising, and I thank everyone who tuned in to listen to our little nerd talk here. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and of course, if you guys like that, we will without a doubt come up with another episode of Kombat Talks. Until then, you guys stay safe, please like, comment and subscribe, and of course visit the YouTube channel of Man with No Game 45. That's all from us for today. KC over and out.